Alright guys, my name is Metagoblin and today I'm going to be telling you the top 10 things you need to know before you play Classic WoW. So this video will contain key pieces of advice and general key information that is essential for every single player to know and fully understand. Do take in mind that this video is intended for more beginner players of the game who haven't really played Classic in any shape or form. If you feel like I've missed something, in the video, then please do tell me in the comment section below. And also be sure to give me a quick follow on Twitch guys, as when the game comes out, I will be streaming over on Twitch. So first piece of advice that I would give you is that you should become aware of what roles each class can perform, since these are extremely limited in Classic World of Warcraft. Only the warrior can perform 2 roles very effectively. Shaman, Druid, Paladin and Priest will probably only play as a healer, however guilds might take one Shadow Priest to buff the DPS of a Warlock group, but Ret Paladin, Enhancement Shaman and Feral Druid are even less likely to get a raid spot, so if you're not making a guild of your friends, right, if you're going into this game alone, it's unlikely that you'll get a raid spot, as many of these specs have, for these like less optimal specs, have massive stigma in the Classic community as just being crap and useless for raiding, so do bear that in mind. Secondly, while on the topic of stigma, there is also an inflated amount of stigma when it comes to your race choice, because the most serious guilds would probably not take a Night Elf Priest, for instance, right? Dwarf Priests have much better class-specific racial abilities. It is important to note because the numbers are crunched down so much in vanilla that the racial bonuses are felt more than they are on retail, so your race choice will likely have a big effect on your overall DPS, particularly if the choice is between human and a different race for melee DPS. If you want more info on that, I do have DPS race videos on my channel. I'm not saying that it's essential for you to go for the best in slot race option in order to get a raid spot, but be aware that topping in DPS charts against an equally skilled player is probably not possible, because if someone has a better race than you, they're going to do more DPS than you, and some very hardcore serious guilds might not even consider you if you don't have your best in slot race option. Thirdly, I would recommend for you to check out leveling guides on the internet. There are a number of guides which give you some optimal leveling routes and grinding locations. A good start will be Joanna's leveling guide. I'll link it in the description below. I understand that vanilla leveling is a big part of a game. You should, it should be enjoyed and not rushed, but not everyone really shares that mindset. There might be people watching this video who are more interested in the raid or PvP content of Classic WoW, and imagine most people want to get to level 60 within at least the first month of the game being released, so following an efficient leveling guide is going to be useful to you. Fourthly, you don't need to learn every single spell when you're leveling up. There are a number of spells that just aren't useful to you when you're leveling because they won't be in your DPS rotation, or they have some kind of niche usefulness which just isn't useful to you. You may also not need to rank up every single spell. For instance, you probably won't need to rank up your resurrection spells because you can just top up your party member's health with a heal instead. Right? The reason why you want to be skimpy with learning spells is because they're really expensive in vanilla. Like, they are ridiculously expensive. You can spend all your gold leveling up and ranking up your spells pretty easily, and it's really important that you save your money for when you get to level 40, because you want to save money for your mount, and getting a mount late is massively gonna increase your leveling time. So you want to be getting a mount as soon as possible, so be skimpy and save money when it comes to learning and ranking up spells. You probably want to check out some class guides. A lot of class guides out there will probably tell you which spells are essential to rank up. So fifthly, I have my last leveling point, which is about talents. You see, for every class there is an optimal leveling talent build, although people probably have theory crafted a million different options but only make about 1% difference. But anyway, I recommend again checking out class guides on YouTube. There's a few on this channel, but there's other great guides out there as well. Learn your best leveling build, your best leveling rotation, all of that kind of thing, because you want to be leveling efficiently as you can. So for number 6, from here we will be talking about raiding and endgame content. So to begin with, we should talk about professions. On retail, over time, professions have become less and less useful, particularly in PvP. Back when I used to play PvP very seriously in Mr. Pandaria, everyone would level their professions because it would give them like a 5% advantage over other players who hadn't. But in vanilla, engineering as a maxed out profession literally gives you a 100% advantage over other players, and even in PvP the advantage is quite high because engineering is a seriously good profession, right? It's really good for every single class, to be honest, just because of the huge advantage it provides. But you may also want to craft your best in slot gear, well, your pre-raid best in slot gear. When you hit level 60, you may be thinking, well, won't I just replace the crafted best in slot gear with raid gear? The thing is, guys, only 2 pieces of gear drop from one boss that has to, for every raid boss, basically, and that has to be shared between 40 people. So trust me, it's going to take you a while before you actually replace your pre-raid best in slot gear, unless you get seriously lucky. So for our 7th point, let's start talking about something a bit more raid specific. This is something I wish I'd learned earlier, and that is group specific buffs and passives. So when Cataclysm was released, I think it was Cataclysm kind of missed a Pandaria time anyway, most buffs and passives just buffed the whole raid, right? You didn't have to think about it that much. But in vanilla, buffs are group restricted. So you will only be able to buff the group that you're in with certain buffs, even if you're in a raid group, apart from like individual buffs which you manually target onto each player. This means there is a different level of strategy involved when it comes to group setups in vanilla raiding. For instance, you might want to have a shaman in a melee DPS group to provide Wind Fury totem, or you might have a warlock in the tank group to provide imp stamina buff. So it's something to bear in mind when you're sorting out your raid groups, and don't be that guy who moans about not getting Wind Fury totem when you're not in the same group as a shaman, okay? For my 8th point, I've simply written down that raids need a lot of stuff. Okay, for instance, you're probably going to need a separate set of resistance gear for certain bosses. You're going to need stat elixirs, DPS potions, fire absorption potions, resistance potion buffs, food buffs, enchants, extra consumables. You're going to need a lot of stuff, right? You can't just buy an elixir and call it a day like you can on retail. Otherwise, progression is going to be very difficult for your guild group if you're lagging behind on certain reagents and consumables. So my advice would be to learn how to make gold. Okay, and spend a little time each week, put a box set on or listen to a podcast and farm some gold for a couple of hours every week, because you're going to need it, right? You can't be lazy in Classic WoW to grind a game, and you have to do the work to progress your character. And that's the great thing about Classic, because it just keeps you so busy. There's just so many things to do. For my 2nd to last point, it's good to be aware that some raids have a long attunement questline, so it's important to get cracking on with them straight away, because you don't want to be missing a raid night because you're not attuned for a certain raid. Good example of this would be Onyxia. It has a really long quest chain, right, which will require a number of group quests to go with it as well, which is weird actually because it's like the smallest raid. Anyway, I'd recommend checking out Tips Out's video. He has a good guide on how to get it done, so go and check that out. Okay, so my last and final point is that you're not going to see many raid pugs in vanilla. Okay, this means if you want to raid, you're going to need to find a good guild if you basically want to progress playing this game. Okay, you might find like Zul'Gurub, AQ20 or Onyxia pugs now and again, and very rarely you find the Molten Core pug further into the game's timeline. But normally you're not going to see pugs for the big raids because they require so many pre-requirements, and getting together 40 people just for a raid takes ages, and there's so much unreliability involved with the chance of people leaving or just simply being really crap at playing the game and causing raid wipes. So yeah, my recommendation is the only way you can really properly progress at clearing this game's content is getting into a good guild, and make sure it's a good, friendly, mature guild that you feel kind of comfortable and welcoming, because you're going to be there in that guild for a long time, unless you guild hop, which is something I'd recommend against, to be honest, in Classic. So that's pretty much the end of the video, guys. My name is Attuiment Goblin, and to my next video, ciao.